This is the first episode of Let's Talk People Pleasing. And honestly, the former anxious people pleaser within me would never have dreamt that she would be releasing a podcast into the world. And please take this as proof that you too can break free from your people pleasing and get to a stage where you're doing stuff you want to do without that fear of what everyone else is thinking about you and without that anxiety that might be holding you back. Because I am literally doing this now, and I would never have been able to do this before I worked through my own difficulties and started practicing what I preach. But this episode is not about me. Today I'll be opening your eyes to 5 things that seem normal for you to do but are actually rooted within people-pleasing behaviour. And the reason I thought this would be helpful is that the more aware you become of how people-pleasing is showing up for you, the better place you'll be able to do something about it. So what is people-pleasing? There's a common misconception that people-pleasing is about, just being nice and kind and doing stuff for people. So it's really important we start to view people-pleasing for what it is, an ingrained pattern of consistently prioritising the needs, wants and comforts of other people at the expense of your own needs and wants and comfort. And that is the distinction. That is what makes it unhelpful. Yeah, we can do nice things for people, but when we are doing those nice things at the expense of what we need and want, that's when it becomes problematic. And there's various reasons why you might be a people pleaser, and the reason why you might be a people pleaser might be different to why someone else is a people pleaser. And I'm not going to go into all the reasons now because literally I would be here for probably more than one episode if I was to cover everything in detail. What I would say is just consider how people pleasing often stems from childhood and is often a product of the messages we receive either implicitly or explicitly when growing up from our environment and the people around us. And for us women, a lot of the time it's down to good girl conditioning. These messages that we take in and these expectations that we have placed on us guide us to believe that we should be showing up in the world as agreeable or as suppressing how we really think, things like that. And ultimately, these messages tell us that we should be sacrificing ourselves for the needs of other people because that's the right thing for us to do, and to not do that would be wrong somehow. And you can see how, because these are the messages we've received growing up and these are the expectations that are placed on us, the way we then show up in the world in terms of being a people pleaser, it just becomes so normalised, just so ingrained and habitual for us. There might be really obvious signs of people pleasing, like bending over backwards for people and struggling to say no, but actually it becomes so ingrained that it starts showing up quite subtly. And it wasn't until I started my own journey and taking a step back and being curious about how my people pleasing was manifesting in terms of my behaviours that I started to spot how it was showing up for me. And by starting to spot how it was showing up for me, I was able to do something about it. So here are 5 examples of things that you might consider to be normal, as I did before I did my own work on myself, but are actually examples of people pleasing. So number 1 is going with the flow. So that sounds quite nice, doesn't it? But I mean, in people pleasing terms, it means something different than just being laid back and truly not minding what you're doing or not caring. In people pleasing, it manifests in terms of you saying things like, oh, I'm easy, I'll just do whatever you guys are doing, I don't mind. And you might be known within your friendship group as someone who just goes along with everything. And really what's going on under the surface is perhaps it just feels easier to do whatever your mates are saying they want to do because it feels easier than you asserting yourself or saying a preference, because there might be a fear of upsetting people, or you might feel quite anxious about saying the wrong thing or putting other people in a position where they have to go along with what you want to do, which makes you feel really uncomfortable. What might be happening is you often find that you're going along with plans and committing to stuff that you don't really want to do or that aren't really in line with your own interests or hobbies because it seems easier. And importantly, another thing to look out for within this one is that when you're a people pleaser, you become so used to suppressing perhaps what you want to do, or just so used to going along with everyone else that you might actually not know what you want to do. So that's why it might feel easier for you to just go along with them. So just practice observing yourself, like what you actually feeling and thinking beyond the I don't mind, I'll do whatever you guys want to do. Number 2 is getting along with everyone you meet. Which again, it sounds like a really positive quality, doesn't it? To be known as someone who just gets on with everyone, or, it feels nice to be likable and everything, doesn't it? So it's completely understandable that you might want to get someone who gets on with everyone you meet. But in people pleasing terms, what might be going on for you is that you feel this need to get on with everyone because you feel like you need to be liked. It's a real want to be liked by people. And therefore, you avoid any disagreements or conflict by going along with other people's opinions, even though you might have different ones, you don't voice them. Or you might find that you shapeshift your own personality and you're really good at being like a social chameleon, where you come across as like having the same interests as the people you meet, or same outlook of life, when secretly what's going on for you is that their morals or their values don't quite align with yours. But because you're a people pleaser, you're really good at masking it. And therefore everyone just views you as, yeah, she really gets on with everyone. Number 3 is downplaying your achievements. So this gives you good clues as well as to the messages that you might have received growing up and how past experiences have shaped you, because it might feel really wrong. It might be seen as blowing your own trumpet, or it might feel really wrong for you to stand out for being good at something, or receiving compliments might make you feel really awkward. So for example, if you got a promotion at work or something and someone's congratulating you, you might start saying, oh, it's not a big deal, like I don't even know why they've chosen me, or making a joke of it to try and deflect from the fact that you feel quite awkward or uncomfortable. Or it might be that you want to downplay your achievements unconsciously because you don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. You might just be so preoccupied with what other people are thinking and feeling that you don't want them to feel bad for you doing well. And there can often be a worry or concern underneath the surface that you're going to come across as arrogant and therefore people might not like you, which for people pleasers is like the worst. Number 4 is one that is perhaps a more obvious sign of people pleasing, but because it becomes so ingrained and habitual, it can often go under your radar because it just feels like, well, that's just the person I'm seen as and the person I am. And that is being a peacemaker. So you might be someone who is constantly stepping in to mediate between people or to smooth things over if there's conflict going on between people, even when it's not your role and it might have nothing to do with you, but there's something within you, it just feels like it's you that has to sort it out. And perhaps because you have stepped in and stuff over the years, people then sort of expect you to sort it out, so they call on you to sort things out and smooth things over, which is completely unfair, by the way. For example, if you're at like a family event or gathering and there's two people in your family that start arguing, or there's conflict that arises, you immediately step in to calm things down, even though their argument has absolutely nothing to do with you. And you notice that you feel really anxious and on edge if there's conflict or confrontation going on around you. Again, even if it's nothing to do with you, there's something inside you where it feels like it is to do with you, and there's like a need or a want to get the peace back and to make sure things don't escalate, and it's really draining your energy. So just see if you can practice noticing if that's happening for you. Number 5 is biting your tongue and just letting things go, which would be so nice, wouldn't it, if it was true? But if you're a people pleaser, even though you're practicing biting your tongue and letting things go, it's unlikely that you're actually letting things go. And what's more likely is, because you're suppressing stuff, it's probably manifesting in different ways, and perhaps there's resentment bubbling under the surface. And I'll give you an example. So say if you're living with a partner and perhaps you've noticed, being a people pleaser, you tend to take responsibility for the majority of the household stuff or life admin or like chores and things like that, and it's really starting to piss you off. But because you feel like it's more of an effort to bring it up and you don't want to upset anyone, maybe you don't want to make your partner feel guilty, or you're worried that it'll escalate into an argument, or they'll start getting upset with you, whatever it might be, you then think, oh, I'll just let it go. It's not a big deal. You might even minimize how much it's affecting you And you might start telling yourself all the good things that your partner's good at to try and justify the fact that they're not doing as much as you. But over time, it's there, it's gonna come to the surface at some point or another. So those are the 5 more subtle ways that people pleasing can often show up for people. It wasn't until I took a step back and started observing what I was doing or not doing that I realised it was showing up in so many areas of my life that I hadn't realised before. So for you to do something about your people pleasing, you're going to need to really practice getting curious and observing what you're doing or not doing. Then you can start doing something about it. And yes, you might need to uncover and address the root cause to feel okay doing something about it, which is what I work with a lot of people to do. But you can start trying to just break the patterns and break the cycles a little bit in manageable ways for you. So for instance, going with the flow, get curious. Am I going with the flow? Do I mind? Is there a way of you perhaps making a suggestion of somewhere that you can next meet your mates, for example, and just observe how that makes you feel? If it's easy, if it's hard, just be curious about it. Getting on with everyone you meet. You might be so preoccupied with wondering how you're coming across to the other person and whether or not they like you that you might not have even stopped to think, do I like them? Do I want to get on with this person? What do I think about their view of life and their preferences and the jokes they tell? So maybe one thing that you could change is by starting asking yourself that question. Do I like this person? Do they get on with me, my true self? Downplaying your achievements, so look out for this. It might be quite difficult for you to start sort of, again, this phrase that comes to mind, which is probably quite telling of my own messages growing up, but about blowing your own trumpet. It might feel quite difficult for you to express like the achievements that you've got. So a way of starting with that might be to just practice. If anyone ever compliments you, just practice saying thank you without saying anything else and just see and observe how comfortable or not that feels. Being the peacemaker, oh, this will be a difficult one, I imagine, to stop doing. So what you could do, a good starting point would be to just practice noticing how you're feeling around potential conflict or when 2 people are having an argument, and just see how it actually feels to try and resist stepping in. I mean, you might still step in because it's probably so ingrained that we need to do some work around like the root cause of it. But a good starting point is increasing your awareness of when you become the peacemaker. Biting your tongue and letting things go. Again, it can be difficult to just not do that. So a good starting point with that might be just practicing. In my example of like the household stuff, is there a way that you could ask the person you live with to do one extra thing? So without pointing out all the things that you're doing or without confronting them about stuff, is there a way of just saying, oh, please will you empty the bins tonight or something like that? So it's just about starting small manageable things that you can start changing or implementing to just help break some of the patterns that might be really ingrained within you. And that brings episode 1 to a close. So I would just like to say thank you so much for coming on my episode 1 journey with me. I would love it if you'd subscribe or share or comment, or even feel free to DM me on Instagram if you've listened to this or watched this. Let me know what you think, and if there's anything that you would love to see or hear about in future episodes, I'd so welcome the feedback. As I learn and grow about podcasting and things like that, I really want to delve deeper into people pleasing with you and delve into like the causes, the reasons why we become people pleasers and why it's so hard to break that pattern of people pleasing. I want to look into how people pleasing is associated with so many difficulties in life, like burnout, low self-esteem, unhealthy relationship patterns, our attachment styles, how they relate, and share a bit more of my own experiences to hopefully empower you to take that step to breaking people pleasing patterns, so you can really feel like how amazing it feels to just break out of that mold. I know it sounds cheesy, but just to become your authentic self and not be so preoccupied with what everyone else is thinking and feeling about us. It's just so liberating. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. And if you do want to identify and address the root cause of your people pleasing, then feel free to DM me or visit my website, charlottebaileytherapies.com. My Instagram handle is at Charlotte_Bailey_therapies. So I'm sure you'll be able to find me and contact me, and we can have a free initial chat about how I can help. So I'll see you soon.